My voice might go here and there a little bit. So if you're not able to audible, or if my voice is not audible, you can check with me.
Okay, sir, sure.
All right. So now we are at the end of this AWS Solutions Architect Associate.
Hmm.
So we have seen infrastructure as service, we have seen code as service, that means function as service. We have seen cloud formation, which also can be used as code as uh, code as a service or code as infrastructure. That's how they call it as. And we also looked into serverless architectures like Lambda and application integration services like SQS and SNS. Now,
Okay.
we are going to get introduced to another new service that is called Elastic Container Service, which stands for ECS. But
Okay.
before I talk about Elastic Container Service, we have to talk about the at least we have to get introduction about Dockers and containers and have a proper visualization why Dockers and containers are getting used in today's generation, why industry is more into Dockers and containers, why they are more depending on Dockers and containers. And so these are the few things that I'm going to talk about before we talk about ECS. So ECS is nothing but an Elastic Container Service that is available in Amazon. That is an Amazon proprietary service, which allows you to orchestrate your containers. Okay.
Okay.
In order to do orchestration of your containers, they use in AWS we use ECS. Before understanding what is how ECS, the container orchestration platform works, we need to understand when we don't have an idea at all what is Docker and container. Do you have an idea about what is Docker and container?
No, sir.
Right. So when we don't have an idea at all what is Docker and container, so talking about Elastic Container Service and how the orchestration platform works is not going to make any sense.
Yeah.
Let's try to understand why Dockers and containers came into the market and became so much popular in today's generation. To understand this, we have to step back, or we have to talk back about probably a 10 15 years or 10 12 years back. We need to talk about, and we will take
Hmm.
that problematic scenario and we will try to understand why we are seeing Dockers and containers today.
Okay.
In the early days, so in 2000s, right, uh, there were developers. Even that time, there were developers, there were testers, and there were operation guys who used to deploy that application into the real-time servers. So production
Hmm.
servers were even there in that time also, and this production servers deployment will be taken care by the operations guys. But the code
Okay.
has to be developed, right? So developer
Yeah.
used to develop the code, and he used to send that code to the tester. Now we will talk about this scenario back in 15 years or something like that.
Okay.
Developer has developed an application, and when he was developing this application, think that he developed an application which is going to be deployed on different distributions like Microsoft, uh, Linux, and Mac. Okay, so let's say
Hmm.
this application is developed for Mac, also for Windows, and also for Linux.
Linux.
So first of all, for this application, for this developer, he has to develop this application which is going to be suitable for this three, systems, right? This three operating system. In order to do that, what he needs to have? He needs to have the individual system installed with the specific operating system. He needs to have
mm,
one system or one machine with installed with Macintosh, and the other system with Windows, and the other with Linux. So first of
mhm,
all, the developer himself needs that three different platforms in order to develop code which is going to be suitable for Windows machine and Linux machine and Mac machine. For an example, let's talk about a VLC application, right?
mm,
VLC is an application which is going to be available for all these three platforms. That's what I think so. I'm not exactly sure. I never
mhm,
used, you know, Mac. But let's take an example. There is no harm in it.
mm,
There is a VLC application developed by a developer or an coder, and now this VLC application has been going to work on three different platforms. One is Mac, one is Windows, and the other one is Linux,
okay,
right? And the
mm,
application,
mm,
the the application which the developer has tested, now he has
mm,
to give it to the testing team.
okay,
So now once he gives to the testing team, now testing team has to sit and test the application that has been developed by the developer in their premises. Okay,
mhm,
think that now testing team will also get three systems based on the requirement what developer has sent, or they will just directly go into test this application in Windows, Windows, Mac, and Linux. What will happen if you have seen or if you have came across this situation when you are installing an application in Windows or anything, right? You might end up looking into some dependencies.
mm,
Correct. So you might ending up looking into, okay, dependencies are not installed. You have to install the dependency. You have to install the dependency first,
mm,
and then you can install or then you can continue to install the software. So we might have came across these type of errors if you have installed games. If you have ever played games in Windows machine, or if you had installed games, sometimes what will happen, the game developers who had developed it,
mm,
he will have installed all these dependencies which is needed for his application. But when
mm,
customer is downloading that application and installing it in their system, might not have that dependencies by default. They have to go ahead and install those dependencies from the internet, manually, right?
yeah,
So these type of encounters, started to happen between the developer team and tester team. Now, why this used to happen? Because developer used to test the application on its own system, and the testers used to test the applications on their own premises. Both the team are sitting in different locations. Think like that. Now, this guy says the application VLC application has been given to testing team. Now, the testing team says that the application is not working properly. It is asking to install this, it is asking to install that, or it is giving some .dll errors.
okay.
Have you came across .dll errors?
I guess I'm not sure.
Okay, or library, missing
Yeah,
libraries.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Libraries.
right? So these are some common errors that you might end up facing when you don't have the exact dependencies what the developer has done. Testing team will
Okay.
start complaining, see man, this application has been not developed properly, it has some issues, you have to go and fix it. Now developer team will say no, this has been completely fixed. I can show it, I can send a screenshot or I can show it to you that this works in my system. Sometimes what happens, even though, okay, think that even though the operating system version that they are using is same, here they are using Windows 10, even the tester is using.
So voice is not clear, sir. Hello.
Is it clear now?
Yeah, yes, sir.
Okay. Now, thanks for reminding. What I was saying, even though the operating system versions that they have installed is still same, but sometimes what will happen, the libraries that they have installed might come by default, or sometimes the developer might have installed that library by himself,
Okay.
right? So this type of miscommunication might happen. So this happened in the beginning days. The developer used to say, okay, so if you're having some problem, go ahead and install this DLLL files, and you also have to install some missing libraries. For example, some sort of driver needs to be installed in order to run that application properly. Now the
Okay.
driver version the developer used might be 1.1. Now this guy, the tester might install the driver version 1.2. Nowadays a higher version will always work. Now let's say 1.0 version.
Okay.
That also can happen. No, now again the misconception will happen. So the tester will say, even after installing the driver which you have told me or which you have sent in the description, this is not working. So you have
Mm-hmm.
problem in the application. Now the developer says what? I can show it to you that this application is running in my system. So I don't have any I don't have any problems. Just because that the version number is different, sometimes the applications would work. Now, in order to resolve this issue, what this
Mm.
developer can do, developer, what do you think that developer can do here? So, developer might think that okay, so this is too much. What if there is a possibility that I can send my entire operating system to them, right? If there is a possibility, or if there is a feature where I can transfer my entire operating system to these guys, or hand over the entire operating system to these guys, so I don't have to you know stick into this conversation that this is working, that is not working, get stuck into the these kind of issues that my system working, it's not working in your system. This was a biggest issues that used to happen whenever there was a new application.
Sir, I'm not able to hear. Hello.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, sir.
I don't know, man, what's the problem with this mic. But anyway, let's continue. Now, developer thinks that you know forget about your system.
Mm.
So I want to give you my entire operating system to you. So is there a way that you
Okay.
can transfer an entire operating system?
Okay.
You don't have, right? You don't have an
Yeah.
option to copy the entire thing and send it over the internet, or share that files to download. You cannot do that for your
Mm-hmm.
operating system. is very huge. Operating
Mm.
system is not that small that you can transfer from, even though you can transfer, it is not possible to transfer an entire operating system which is running in your laptop or in your desktop,
Okay.
right? In order to solve this issue, the developer thinks that, forget about this tester, guys. So, don't worry about your system. If there was a possibility that I can give my system to you, which I have used to
Mm.
develop, you guys can test
Mm.
it
Mm.
and you guys can see that it is working in my system. And you can
Okay.
all the requirements and prerequisites that needs to be installed before installing this application. I'll give you all those details. You can check. But
Mm.
copying and giving the entire operating system is not possible. Now this is
Yeah.
reason, okay, virtualization was created. Not
Mm-hmm.
only for this, I can give you another example. Now, why virtualization came into the market? Because of the drawback what we had here. In order to eliminate that specific drawback, or in order to make the things easier between developer and tester team, right? They introduced virtualization where someone can easily give the control of the operating system to somebody else.
Mm.
Understanding?
Okay. Mm.
So a developer can easily give the entire virtual machine to somebody else to test that specific application.
Okay.
Now the next thing, why virtualization was important, because see here, in order to uh, deploy this application, in order to run this application, you need a separate device called Mac. You need a separate system for Windows. You need a separate system for Linux. You have to go ahead and invest a separate system for Macintosh, separate system for Windows. You have to go ahead and allocate 4 GB of RAM or 8 GB of RAM. 500 GB hard disk and an i5 processor. For Linux system, again, it is a separate system. You have to go ahead and bring the resources, hardware devices like RAM,
Mm.
hard disk, CPU, motherboard, and all those stuff.
Okay.
Now, once this application has been developed, these systems from developer end going to be sitting jobless, right?
Mm.
So until again the next application he develops, only then he will use these three systems. Till that, the systems will sit idle, empty. Nobody is going to use the systems. Again, the same thing will happen for testing team also, right? So
Mm.
testing team will also have if developer is developing the application in three different platform, even the testing team also need to have three different platform systems available with them in order to go ahead and test it. Now
Okay.
um, investing on each machines, it looked a little bit costlier than putting all the machines inside one box, one hardware box, right? So moreover,
Yeah.
it is also going to give you the easy controlling features. Virtualization is also going to give you an easy access, because you don't have to move away from one system to another system in order to go ahead and test, in order to go ahead and test that application, right? So you are right now you are sitting in Macintosh. Think that you have to check something in Windows. Now you have to move from this system to this system. Now, if you want to check something in Linux, you have to move from
Sir,
this system.
voice is breaking. Not audible.
Right, right. So you don't have single control panel where you can sit at one place and access all these three systems,
Okay.
right? Now, virtualization eliminates that specific, hassle for anybody. It will allow you to, or it will give you a central control panel, so you can have all your virtual one hardware, right, or one place, and you can do whatever job you want to do with one click. You can switch from Windows to Linux, Linux to Mac, or whatever it is.
Hmm.
So one thing, virtualization, why virtualization eliminated was, transferring the operating system. It was not possible. But in when virtualization came into the picture, they eliminated this, sending the or giving that machine which developer used for developing the application to testing team. So it was not possible because operating system is a very complicated thing and very huge. It cannot be copied or it cannot be transferred from one system to another system. I cannot give my operating system. My operating system means that my operating system has some applications installed. My operating system has my files. My operating system has my things which are downloaded, which I have downloaded. I cannot give, it is there is no way that I can give this operating system, copy it and give it to you. But virtualization, introducing the virtualization eliminated this specific problems, right? So it was easy to, copy a virtual machine and give it to somebody else, so they can go ahead and run that virtual machine in the, virtualization application. So they will have the access to that virtual machine, so they can go ahead and test whatever they want.
Okay.
So this is why virtualization came into the picture. But now let's talk what was not able to fix in virtualization. Okay.
Hmm.
Now, when we create virtual machines, what we will do, we have to allocate resources, right? For
Hmm.
example, I am creating one virtual machine. So this is a virtual machine. I'm going to give 4 GB of RAM and let's say 500, or let me keep it as 250 GB hard disk.
Hmm.
And I'm going to give 4 core processors
Hmm.
for this specific virtual machine, right? The same thing I'll
Okay.
do for all these three. But the application that I have developed, that will, for example, VLC. VLC is an application, according to my knowledge, it's not more than how much? 80 MBs or 90 MB. After installation, it will probably take VLC kind of application might take only how much of RAM? I think somewhere around, I think that 200 MB of RAM will be used by your application. And to store the data, hard disk, let's say it will not use hundreds of GBs to store the data, right? Or it might use 100 GBs of data also, not a problem. But why? But no matter, we have to give 250 or 500 GB of hard disk for an virtual machine. Why we want to see, in order to run 200 MB application, I have to give 4 gigabytes of RAM and I have to give 250 gigabytes of hard disk and 4 CPUs. You getting my point? What I'm saying? Just to run the 200 MB application, most of the
Yes. Yes. Yes.
applications what we run, right? They don't use more than
Hmm.
500 MB of RAM,
Hmm.
Microsoft Office, whatever it is. Most of the applications we use, they don't use more RAMs or more resources. Now for running games is different. Games we use GBs of RAM and GBs of hard disk. That is different. I'm not talking about game. Game is different.
Your voice is low, sir.
Is it working now?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Most of the applications, so 70 to 80% of applications that I have seen will not use too much of resources. Now, why I have to give 4 gigabytes of RAM and 250 GB of hard disk and 4 vCPUs, 4 core processors for running a 200 MB application? Now, why I am allocating this much of resources for just running 200 MB application means, now how do you test this application? In order to install this software, you need to have an operating system installed, right? You need to have OS on all this machines that you have purchased. Without installing an operating system, no matter whether it is a Linux or whether it is Macintosh or whether it is a Windows, operating system is very huge, and in order to run that operating system, you need huge resources. Something like we talked 4 gigabytes of RAM, just to keep that operating system up and running. On top of that, your application will be running. Your application is using 200 MB RAM. That's it. But the operating system is using too much of resources. Sometimes, believe me, sometimes the applications, 80% of the services or applications that are running in the behind, okay, is not needed for your actual application. So whatever application we are trying to install or we are trying to run, that application doesn't need too much of resources or too much of services that are running in the background by operating system. But these services are required to keep the operating system up and running. Okay. Operating
Yes,
system
sir.
has to be up and running. For that, there are so many services. But for my application to keep up and running, I don't need too many resources or services. I just need one or two libraries. That's it. For that,
Oh,
to run
okay.
that, my voice is lower.
No, no, sir. It's fine.
Okay. To run that small application, we are spending too much of resources here. And once I allocate a resource to a virtual machine, then that resource is allocated. I cannot use that resource until and unless the virtual machine is in stop state or the virtual machine has been completely deleted. Right? Even though my application is running or not running, somebody is accessing, somebody is not accessing, that 4 gigabytes and 250 GB hard disk and 4 vCPUs. I'm just giving my numbers. It can be even more when it comes to corporate. Correct. What I'm doing here,
Yes, sir.
I am. Any question you have?
No, no, sir. I'm understanding.
So, what is happening here is the resources are getting wasted. The resources are getting wasted. Now, why these resources are getting wasted? Because of installing the operating system. We have to run the operating system. Because of that, no matter whether my application is small or running or not running, I have to allocate this, this much of GB RAM, that much of GB hard disk and CPUs in the virtual machines. Now, virtual machine eliminated the problems or drawbacks we had before that, but we couldn't eliminate the actual problem, which was resource wastage control. Now, in order
Mm.
to control the resource wastage, what we had to remove here was we had to remove the operating system. We had to solve the problem by eliminating installing an entire operating system. Because to run the operating system, as I said, there are so many services that has to be started. And these services will use a lot of resources, not our actual applications. right? Because the
Okay.
operating system itself need resources in order to keep up and running. In order to keep up and
Mm.
running and in order to operate until I shut down that virtual machine.
Okay.
Not my application. My application doesn't eat too much of RAM or hard disk here.
Mm-hmm.
So they wanted to have something lightweight, not heavy like an actual operating system. Correct. They wanted
Mm-hmm.
a solution in terms of lightweight concept.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to install an operating system. I don't want to install the unnecessary libraries. I just want a few libraries that are going to support to at least run the applications. That's all I need. If I give 100 MB also, the operating system should run. I need something lightweight like that. So that is what industry started to think. And
So voice is low, sir.
is it audible?
Yes, sir. Why it goes down, sir, every time?
I am not sure, man. I have to check if there is an bug in the application. I have to reinstall Zoom. Will
Mm-hmm.
not a problem. Right. Now, industry wanted something like a lightweight operating system where
Mm.
the operating system will not use like GBs of RAM. The operating
Mm.
system will only use MBs of RAM, and it doesn't need too much services. It just needs some libraries which will support the application to run on it, to operate on it. So this kind of
Okay.
uh, solution they wanted, industry was looking for. They wanted to mainly control the resource wastage. So what they did, they introduced Docker.
Mm-hmm.
So Docker is actually the name of the company, but also the engine. So Docker is something like a software, just like the virtualization. So virtualization can have different types of virtualization. So we have type 1, type 2 virtualizations, or we call it as tier 1, tier 2 and all. I would like to put that information in the easiest way. So we call it as bare metal installation or guest operating system installation, right? Bare metal
Okay.
installation means you will have an entire dedicated hardware. On top of that, you will go and install the operating system, which is like VMware ESXi. VMware ESXi is
Okay.
an operating system which is mainly
Mm.
designed for working with virtualization, not for enterprise or not for other things. Docker cannot be installed on a bare metal. It needs an operating system. So Docker will always be installed on top of an operating system. Remember this. If you have Windows machine, you can install Docker. And now you might ask me, Yagnesh, you were telling to come out from that operating system, but again, you are telling to install Docker, we need operating. There is story
Mm.
still left, so you will understand. Now, why Docker need operating system? It's a software. Okay, it is not a hypervisor or something like that. Docker just works like a virtualization platform. Now,
Mm.
inside virtualization, what we will do, we will create, inside, VMware workstations or VMware vSphere or whatever it is. So what we do, we create virtual machines there, correct?
Mm.
So here inside Dockers, we create containers. Containers are nothing but, you can compare it to your virtual machines. How
Mm-hmm.
virtual machines are going to work the same way your containers will also be. Now, inside
Okay.
containers, we will have container images. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
so let me bring this slides. Should be easy.